Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Monday, June 3rd. We are currently in Pride Month. Yay! Today we are talking go bags, and one of our guest hosts, Liz, is very excited to get into this. Before I go ahead and introduce anyone, I want to make sure everyone understands go bags can be either situational or can be cover-alls. Cover all situations. It really depends on how you're gearing your lifestyle as to how you build your go bag. With that in mind, let me go ahead and introduce first my favorite dirty Frenchy Frenchman from the Soviet state of Kanukistan, our one and only Dale. Please say hello, Dale.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am coming to you live on this unfortunately warm Monday from the no longer frozen land of Montreal.
And then we are going to go ahead and greet our one and only Liz from the South. Please say hello, Liz.
Hello. And also, I bet it's hotter here.
It
Probably.
it's probably hotter and more humid than it is here in Iowa, but it is really stinking humid here. I was supposed to take my daughter shooting this week, and I canceled those plans yesterday because the weather said that it was going to rain from like 2 a.m. this morning until like 2 a.m. Thursday morning, and lo and behold, it hasn't rained at all here. Which means the humidity has just been building and building and building, and we're right by the river. It sucks.
I have
With
it's not a real conspiracy theory, but it's like my opinion that humans conspire together to believe that we can tell what the weather's going to be when we can only kind of guess it.
well, it's quite possible. Let me go ahead and turn down my mic just slightly so I can get better audio levels for everything. So we're talking go bags, and Liz, you were extremely excited to talk about this because you don't currently have a go bag. Is that right?
Yes, but also when I was living in Philadelphia, my go bag was my favorite topic of conversation that everybody looked at me like I was a nutcase when I brought it up.
Now, when you had a go bag, what was it geared towards?
So we were living in Philadelphia during the pandemic, and there were a few times that I was worried that perhaps there was going to be a situation where food wasn't going to be coming into my area, or there was going to be enough civil unrest that I should get my ass out because I'm not from Philly, and I don't know that I want to fight for that particular city. No offense to Philadelphians, love you very much. So I kind of had it in my mind that I might need to just get the fuck out of town one day, ASAP. I had a electric bike that could go 28 miles before it needed charging, and from there I figured I could like call an Uber or whatever. And so my bike or my gear was like had to fit on my bike. I had to be able to carry it. It had to be enough to get me through like maybe a night and actually pedaling the electric bike if I had to, because you can go like obviously farther than 28 miles. And like just as far as I could get away from the situation, just to like not be there. Um,
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit more talking than I meant to do in one go, but,
No,
it was
it's
all
fine.
I was going through at the time, so, like, it was all I was thinking about nonstop.
Okay, so go as you can see, go bags can be geared towards certain situations. And what you did was you geared it towards a couple of certain situations. I know that there are other people who gear it towards a other specific situations, like women living in a household that could potentially become abusive, which was what sparked the topic in my head. There was a YouTube podcast that I was listening to where someone was talking about having lived in an abusive household, and they told their husband where they had put their go bag. And before they even tried to leave, the husband destroyed the go bag.
Mm.
Now, generally, if you're going to, if you think a household could ever eventually become abusive, if you ever have that inkling, don't ever tell the person you suspect may become abusive that you have a go bag, and certainly don't tell them where the fuck you're leaving it.
Yeah, did she elaborate on why she told the abuser about the go bag?
No, she didn't. There was another woman on the podcast that her go bag was found by her husband,
Hmm.
and she had previously been in an abusive relationship, and she only kept the go bag because of the previous relationship. She didn't truly believe that the current relationship was going to sour. And she was right. It didn't sour by him becoming abusive. It soured because he felt that she didn't trust him enough, which is still valid.
Yeah.
No, I feel like when you're with somebody who's been through some trauma, part of going into that relationship is understanding from the get-go that sometimes you're going to have to run around shit like them having a go bag because they're still terrified they might have to get the hell out of Dodge. Like,
Which,
yeah,
yeah,
it's like the
no,
whole person you can accept, right?
yeah, which I get, but that therein lies the issue. Sometimes people can be so perfect for each other, and there's just that one thing that can break an entire relationship. It still won't become abusive, but the relationship's done with, because relationships are built on trust. And yes, while a person may still have that trauma from a previous relationship where they were abused, there's still an issue there. If she didn't have the inkling, but she wanted to keep the go bag, she still could have communicated that it existed. She shouldn't have. She didn't have to tell him where it was. She just should tell him that it exists.
What was the podcast?
I don't remember the podcast. It just came on YouTube because YouTube updated and set my phone to autoplay. So I just listened to it while I was driving last week.
Oh, fair enough. So it
I
wasn't
would
one you regularly
100%
watch.
never hold it against somebody that they had a sense of self-preservation.
Well, and neither would I. I do not hold it against anyone for having a sense of self-preservation. Which is, I mean, I discussed this with Coda. If she ever had a go bag to escape from me, I would understand. Not because I think she's afraid of me, but she's afraid of what I have demonstrated I can do because of my past.
Now, see, I wouldn't even see it like that. I would just be like, well, if you have the bag in case of emergencies and secrecy kind of like makes it more effective, then of course you wouldn't tell me. Like, what if I'm the threat? Like, I don't know. Because the first thing I would do upon finding a go bag is be like, what you got in there? And then trade tips.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. That's the thing. I have a go bag. and I'm going to build a go bag for Coda. And we're both going to put it in our own places. Obviously, I'd easily be able to find her go bag, and she can easily find mine. And in fact, she's run across it a couple times. And I've told her what it is. It's just that one thing in a relationship where it's built on trust, and if the person that's supposed to be trusted finds the go bag, didn't even know it existed, it just, if they've never been part of any sort of survival community, I don't think they could ever get past that. I don't honestly believe they could rebuild themselves into understanding until they went through a survival situation.
So, in general, how big are go bags? Are they like backpack size, or can they be like luggage size?
You need a backpack. Well, you need a pack. It needs to be something you can carry. Now, my go bag is ever expanding and changing,
Yeah.
and
Is a
my go bag is an all-purpose shit hit the fan go bag.
Alright. Like, is a go bag something that you could, in theory, fit a rifle in?
If you've got a shorty,
Hmm.
ideally what you want is something like a 300 blackout or a 9mm with a pistol brace that can break down the brace.
Yeah.
I think an important characteristic of your go bag is that you be able to carry it.
Yeah.
So if you can carry the bag and you can do it for long distance in case you have to walk, like I don't think it defeats the purpose if you take something large.
Yeah, I only asked about the rifle because at least when I thought of when it was originally mentioned in this podcast, and I was thinking about what I'd put in a go bag, I would think that I need I need something handgun like size to deal with potential threats from people. But
Uh-huh.
also, if my go bag was like, I need to get the fuck out of here and go into the woods for like a few weeks, I also need something bear sized. And I don't think a handgun is going to be bear or a moose sized. Right? I need something that can protect myself from hungry animals. And that yeah, I would think I would need some sort of rifle for that.
Yeah,
I think
so
that brings up like it depends on where you're going to, what your go bag is geared towards. Like if you are going inner city to get away from somebody and hide amongst people, you wouldn't want to take something like a large gun. You would want to
All
keep
right.
your belongings slim and like casual and something that would blend in so that nobody noticed you.
Yeah.
which is why I said if you're going to take a rifle or something similar, you're going to want a shorty. So like
Mhm.
an AR with a 4-inch barrel with 300 blackout or 9mm with a pistol brace that breaks down,
Right.
so you can fit it in the backpack.
Could a 9mm round from a short AR still take down like a large bear or other large
If you
predator?
hit it in the right spot,
Hmm.
Erica, I have a question for you.
yes.
Civilization has just fallen. It's
Mm-hmm.
crazy outside your door. You're
Yep.
packing your bags to go out. What weapon are you taking with you?
I'm taking my 9mm pistol. I actually am taking both of my 9mm pistols, my 6-hour P320, my Glock 43X, and then I'm taking my AR pistol, which is which is chambered in 9mm, has a 4-inch barrel. I can fit that in a backpack. Um, on top of that, what I currently have in my bag is a little over 1,500 feet of 550 paracord,
What is that?
Um, so you've seen parachutes,
Oh yeah.
the cords that better yet, you've seen those uh, military bracelets with the little buckle on them. Looks like little tiny rope that makes that design. That's 550 cord.
Hmm.
It's supposed to hold on and hold on to 550 pounds of weight
Oh.
with one strand.
Hmm.
Um, but the the paracord I have is specifically meant for building nets, building hammocks, and getting up in high places to keep myself hidden and just generally keep myself fairly comfortable.
And if you got behind somebody with it, you could do a little bit of strangling.
Yeah, but that's generally not the intention because that'll even hurt the hands. If I'm going to do something like that, they're going to get a blood choke, not a windpipe choke.
All right.
So we're not including it in our weapons then.
No, that's not part of our weapons. Then we have medkit, general hemostatic gauze, several packs of that, at least 4 tourniquets, in case I come across people that are going to join me. Have wound dressings, that sort of shit. And then we're moving on from there to some form of comfort. So then I'm bringing a yoga mat, aka an iso mat, and a sleeping bag. And that'll go into the hammock when I hang it. Then there is a carbon steel hatchet and a flint striker. We don't need a flint because we have a high carbon steel surface. When struck with the striker, it will actually create sparks, just the same way that a flint will.
That's useful.
Then a
And it won't
knife.
damage. It won't damage the hatchet.
No, it won't damage the hatchet.
All right.
Then we have a high carbon steel knife. Generally for whatever needs to be knifed, cutting paracord, filleting fish if we're down by a river and we're catching fish. There's also going to be a cast iron Dutch oven. Small cast iron Dutch oven. Much smaller than what I currently use in my actual oven because that's heavy shit.
All right.
But all in all, with all of that, I can survive in most terrains, even in an urban terrain, without having to bring anything else. I can gather everything else wherever I am.
All right. Well, yeah, I figure the urban terrain would probably be relatively easy to gather stuff because just there Or you mean in the case where like society's completely broken down and there's nothing anywhere and um
Well, if shit hits the fan, society is broken down. You know, there's no actual no government. You know, everyone's looting shit. And I talked to Stoner about this last week when I
mhm,
first proposed the topic for tonight. Um, there is a group, a very specific group that lives majoritively in the south and northern west area of the U.S.
mhm,
That has been part of the prepper community since it began, when people started building bomb shelters,
mhm.
because this group has the largest stockpile of resources in the country. But they are also going to be the most dangerous if you don't take them out immediately.
Who are they?
Well, I'm not going to name the fundamentalist religion that they're a part of,
Hmm. Ah, right.
but from that, I'm pretty sure you can pick up on what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They have a lot of adjacent fundamentalist religions, like the Quiverfell movement,
Mhm.
aka Botkin, Lucas Botkin, aka Lucas Fembotkin.
Hmm.
And of course, Stoner is typing here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the side topic.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's there.
do you know any large communities of the type that aren't um that type of fundamentalist community?
Huh.
Do I know of any communities that are dangerous that aren't fundamentalists? Is that what you're asking?
Apologies, my daughter came in for some reason
No worries.
to hand me $2. I'm completely mystified right now. I was listening, but it threw me off my game.
Okay, so what is it exactly that you're asking?
Oh, I was asking if you knew any like communities that have been prepping that are like established that aren't evil, basically.
Okay, that aren't fundamentalists and are not a threat.
Yeah, like, if society collapsed, like who's in a good position to survive and like start rebuilding?
Um, the general ham community.
Like
Now,
ham radio?
yeah, the general ham radio community. Now, of course, there are several people that are in the ham community that are part of the fundamentalist religion that I was talking about, but on the larger scale, those a lot of the people that would have that do currently have a license to operate, they're not part of that religion, and they actually have a very, very good understanding of how to survive, um, and continue to run comms even after shit has hit the fan. Which reminds me, I forgot to add into that. I will also be bringing at least 4 ham radios with me if shit hits the fan.
I don't think I heard you talk about a knife that you would bring with you either, and a good knife is always important.
Generally, I would get a custom-made high-carbon steel K-bar with a Kydex sheath. The high-carbon steel, obviously, it's an extremely strong blade, and you have the added benefit of being able to strike it to create a fire. It also has a hand guard on it, so that if you do have to use it as a weapon, you're not going to slip on that knife once your hand is covered in whatever liquid and slip with your hand onto the blade and cut yourself.
That's good to know.
If you do have a bayonet lug on your rifle, you have the added benefit of being able to mount it on your rifle.
Would you be taking any sort of like disinfectants and or antibiotic type things to prevent? Hold on a second. Currently in a podcast. Okay. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Generally, no. Those would be extremely difficult to get your hands on for preparation to begin with. And there is an expiration date to a lot of those things. Now, you can create antiseptics like alcohol.
All right.
If you have all of the knowledge you need in order to create those antiseptics. And I do have that knowledge. So along with everything else, I'd also be bringing a sourdough starter with me.
Ideally,
good food.
sorry.
I was just joking around.
Yeah.
Well,
ideally, if and when shit does hit the fan, what sort of terrain would you be headed to? Assuming all the various terrains where you had access to reasonably get there, where would you go?
I would probably head towards the Southern Rockies. Again, because that group that is most dangerous lives around that area. They actually live along the entire Rocky mountain range. But
wouldn't you want to be putting distance between you and them then, rather than
no,
heading towards them?
because
I
they
think
need
that's
to
what
be
I'll be
taken
doing.
out.
Fair enough.
If you do not immediately get rid of them before they can organize and start their march into the West and the Midwest, they're not going to be stopped. At least not immediately. Pretty much everyone would get pushed to the eastern parts of the Midwest. But as for the sourdough starter, I think Liz was trying to make a joke about making food.
Oh yeah, I was just teasing you about taking good food wherever you go.
Well, sourdough starter is an extremely versatile thing to have. It can live on just about anything that has starches in it. And it's a cultivated yeast colony. And so you can create antiseptics from it. You can make alcohol. You can make bread. You can make alcohol. You can ferment foods. You can do quite a few things with sourdough starter.
I have so many things that I haven't learned as an adult that I'm realizing that I should.
Well, and that was the fun thing about the pandemic was learning the science behind sourdough, because everyone was staying home and making sourdough because they weren't going out and buying bread. I was trying to learn it while driving a semi.
I was doing a lot of experimentation with different types of flour, but not anything as cool as sourdough.
Sourdough is just one of those things where it makes great food, and it's just so versatile. And we know that it's versatile because there have been sourdough starters found in ancient structures. I'm pretty sure when they opened up the tombs in Giza, they found a sourdough starter. And we're talking about 2,000-year-old bacterial colonies that can just come back to life.
Impressive.
2,000-plus-year-old bacterial colonies that can just come back to life. So, I mean, if you guys have read the Bible, when they're talking about the Last Dinner with Jesus, they make very clear that he was using unleavened bread,
Right.
to symbolize his body. Why do you think that they made that distinction of unleavened bread? It's because they also had leavened bread through sourdough starter. I need to plug in my gimbal.
All right.
What's a gimbal?
A gimbal is a piece of technology that allows for your camera to move in a smooth manner, so that if you're moving around, it's not going to you're not going to see all of the jerky motion in the video. And I'm not going to show this for the people watching the stream, but I am going to show this to you. I'm currently using my phone as a webcam, and I can move my gimbal up and down, and it will actually lock in place so that if I move it, it's a bit smoother than just using your hands when it comes to your camera. I bought this specifically for shooting and for shooting and bowling.
Do you go? Actually, hold on a second. I have something that I want to talk to you about. It's not go bag related, but it is pride related.
Yes.
What are your feelings about people wishing straight people a happy pride? Because I have some thoughts on this.
Like, are they doing so obnoxiously, or like, what? In what context are they wishing them that?
So, an
Like,
example
antagonistic?
that I saw today, and it's very benign, but it still made me be like, what the fuck? Was straight lady Celia on Twitter, who admittedly is an ally to the gay and the trans community. I'm not going to say that she isn't, but she's a well known straight lady with a husband who's cisgendered. And I saw somebody wish her a happy pride today, and I was like, why the fuck are you doing that?
Listen, if they're doing it to be inclusive, like to actually show appreciation to people, I'm fine with it. But if they're doing it to make fun of someone because of a shit position that that person has previously shown, I'm going to condemn the shit that that person has previously said, and I'm going to condemn the person that is saying it to try to get under their skin, because that's just fucking mean spirited. I mean, if
I
you're
feel like it's
truly
unnecessarily centering allies, which, like, not to say that allies aren't important, but like straight people have the rest of the year, and it's just weird to me that during the time period to celebrate gay people that you would go up to, and I've seen other straight ladies say happy pride to each other too, and I don't know, it kind of makes me roll my eyes.
Well, if I might just interject here, I do have to disagree a bit. We don't really have a time to celebrate straight people. Right? There is no, like, just not the rest of the year not being a celebration of gay people is not in and of itself a celebration of non-gay people.
Sorry, baby showers are a celebration of heterosexuality and
Not
then weddings.
necessarily. I mean,
I mean,
Gay people adopt. Like, surrogacies have baby showers, right? Gay people have babies through surrogacies now. They adopt. We can have baby showers that way. Those aren't really any.
okay,
Those
but
aren't
like I
really.
feel like, like, have you ever been at a gay club and a
No,
straight lady bachelorette party rolled in?
no. I've never been at a gay club or any club for that
Uh,
matter.
Neither of you are city girls, are you?
well,
I'm
I
yeah,
am
and in the city. Um, I am in one of the 10 biggest cities in North America.
I I have been to a gay club, and I have seen that exact scenario. But the thing about the area that I live in is we have been very accepting of uh, of people's sexuality and gender identity for far longer than most of the country. Even though I live in like the heart of red territory in the U.S., um, I mean, back when back in the early 2000s, a good majority of my friends had already come out as lesbian, gay, or bisexual. And so the one time that I've been to a club having a bachelorette party come into the gay club, uh, half of those women were either bi or lesbian friends of the bachelorette.
I used to hang out at a club that regularly got invaded by ladies that did not ever hang out any other time there. They were just like, this is our safe space for men. And I don't know. I don't mean to be cranky about it, but it does kind of get under my skin a little bit.
And it's paradoxical. It really is, because I've been in very red areas where the cities are the most accepting people ever of all different ideas, people, whether, you're black, white, Asian, uh, gay, straight, lesbian, trans, extremely accepting. And then I've been to extremely blue areas like New York City or Chicago, where if you go to a club and you just look like you don't belong, they are going to have a heyday.
Oh, good night, Z. Z is off to bed.
Like, you basically have to know someone that is very well established in that area to be safe. And that's frightening to me.
Yeah.
know that I want people who are in gay bars that aren't gay to feel unsafe, but I would like them to not get mad at me when I hit on them because they're straight when they're in the wrong
Well,
place.
yeah, that's the thing. If you're straight and you go to a gay bar, accept that you're gonna get hit on. I mean, when I was still presenting as male, and I went to a bar with one of my friends, I didn't realize it was a gay bar. I stayed there. I had drinks with him, and a few people that hadn't seen me there before started hitting on me, and I said, "I'm sorry. I'm straight, and this is my friend. We're just having a drink." And I was more so flattered, and that was long
Hmm.
before I actually came out as bi.
Okay. Did your friend know it was a gay bar, or did they also
Yes,
not know?
he knew because he's gay.
Ah, fair enough.
I'm sorry, I'm straight is the appropriate thing to say.
I,
That was mostly a joke.
all I did was, just tell them I was flattered. I wasn't interested. I was just there to, have a drink with a friend and then go home. Although I did do karaoke with them that night.
Hmm.
Of course, when it comes to the city I live in, we are not a large city. We barely qualify as a city when put next to cities like Houston, LA, New York City, Chicago, uh, San Diego, any large city that is both a city and a college town. We're not big enough for that. We don't have that sort of notoriety. What we are known for is floods.
Yeah.
I
How
think
many
you
people
introduced.
roughly are in your city?
Liz, first, go ahead and say what you were saying.
I was about to completely derail the topic, so he should go first.
Okay.
I was just wondering, sir, how many? What's the rough population of your city? Is it like a couple hundred
Um,
thousand?
about 280 to 300,000. You could basically occupy my city with either the Navy or the Marine Corps.
Hmm. All right, now what were you about to say?
I was gonna say that you introduced me as being Southern, but I actually have lived like all over the United States now. So I lived up
Yeah,
in like
well,
Ann Arbor, Michigan for a while, and then in Portland, Oregon and stuff. And I think like my favorite feel is like the small town gay scene and not necessarily the big like Portland feels like a big small town most of the time, but like when you're like downtown proper, it just doesn't feel quite as cozy as like a bar where everybody knows each other.
Yeah. Well, and that's generally why I stay out of the downtown area of any city I go to. And whenever I go somewhere, I look for a hole in the wall bar on the outside of whatever city or town that I'm in.
Why specifically a hole in the wall type of place?
Because holes in the wall on the outer parts of the city are usually only visited by old people or, young people that live in suburbs
Hmm.
and really keep to themselves.
Oh. So you're
I
less likely to be approached?
well, I'm less likely to be approached, or if I am approached, these people are more interested in getting to know me than start a fight.
Ah, fair enough.
Because generally, people that live in suburbs don't have their guard up.
Hmm.
And so if you're in their area, they're going to assume one of a few things. Generally, they're going to just assume, hey, they just moved into the area. I'd like to get to know them. Or one of the other things is, hey, they just moved into the area. Fuck them. I don't want to talk to them. They're generally not looking for a fight. And that's what I'm looking for.
Where do you generally find the people who are probably looking for a fight?
Urban centers.
If you're in
Down.
Portland, Oregon, I recommend the Yam Hill pub for a fight. I mean, you won't necessarily get one, but they do overserve, so
So in
also
our
Kelly's
city,
Olympian can be good on a Saturday night for a fight.
in our city, we have 5 major bars downtown. There's
Mhm.
Hazards County. But that moved. That used to be right by the bus hub, and that's no longer there. That moved to the north side of town because they were constantly getting fined by the city for the fights in the bar. They moved to the north side, and hey, guess what? They're no longer getting fined because the people going to the bar there are no longer ruffians.
It's like, were these like really low end, like dive bar type bars, or like?
Well, no, they weren't dive. They weren't dives. They were high notoriety bars. They were running, daily specials. They would see business all week long.
All right.
Mostly
Like, we-
from mostly from the community college students that live on the southwest side.
Is this some like distinctly American thing? Because like I've lived in the city all my life. I've never like I've gone to a fair amount of bars like downtown, and I've never really seen anyone get into a fight.
How late?
Um,
What?
I don't know, between the hours of like 7 p.m. and like 2 a.m. maybe.
Okay, how often?
What's the poor section of your neighborhood where people work shit jobs because they can't get better jobs?
Oh, right. I guess yeah. I've never gone to like those bars. Usually the bars I'd go to were like peak college like bars, like the bars right around the universities and stuff like that, in like the um those areas of town.
Here's the thing about bars. It depends on the area that you're living in. It depends on the general wealth of the people that are going to the bar. In the US urban centers, They're going to have very rundown apartments, so they're going to have some of the cheapest rent in the city. Unless they have a view of the sites, and then they're going to be some of the most expensive apartments in the city.
Alright.
We're generally downtown. You're going to be looking for something close to an industrial center. So, Hazard County Bar was right next to several major industrial areas, not actual like factories, but more so they were right by the city's bus hub. They were right by the headquarters for one of the trucking companies. No, trucks don't come into that headquarters building. They have a yard elsewhere in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And they were right by the river, but no one really cares about that river. It's not really a site. And they have that area is also near a part of the city that had been flooded out, and they tried to revive it through a bohemian ideology, and that just fell flat on its face. Most of the businesses down there open up and fail within 3 to 4 years.
So
You
the
know,
bar fights is more of a function of like poor people drinking rather than say just downtown. It's like the poor areas of downtown.
Yeah, but that's the thing in my city. All of downtown is right by poor areas.
and I would say that like it's a part of the human condition that when we're run down and we don't get enough sleep and we don't get enough to eat and we're working and we're not actually having our needs met, that we do tend to fight with each other with alcohol involved. That's not super shocking.
No, it's not.
I do have something to add to the lady in the domestically abusive relationship that's trying to escape conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, something that you can do to kind of aid you in case your bag might get discovered is to put your important documents, the stuff that you can't get easily again, that would really fuck it up if he found it and took it, and set that in a Ziploc bag, like a gallon Ziploc bag, and keep it flat somewhere. And you can put it in a multitude of spaces. You know your husband best. If he doesn't touch the cleaning supplies, maybe that's a good area to hide them in, or in the laundry room if he refuses to do his own laundry. There's a lot of areas of the house that, when you're in a relationship with somebody, damn well they don't touch, and you can hide that kind of stuff there and then keep it separate from the go bag so that it's just not as easy to interrupt your plans. In between two beds is a place that people don't look very often.
True.
I mean, in between the mattress and the bed springs.
If you've got bed springs.
If you have bed springs, or like, I mean, but beds tend to, once they're put in a spot, people tend to just leave them there. Um, Underneath dressers, taped to the top is not a bad spot to hide something, where just a place that nobody's likely to stumble across, because you can replace a first aid kit and you can replace the $100 that you painstakingly put away because he watches the money, but you can't easily replace your birth certificate when you're in a shitty situation. It involves having it sent to the house. There's multiple places that can go wrong. So you really want to protect your documents so that you can start all over again as quickly as possible.
Yes. Ideally, if you are in that situation and you're looking to get out, have your documents and find a way to get them to someone to hold on to them for you. Someone you trust implicitly. Come up come up with a plan where you can just leave with the clothes on your back. Obviously, you don't want to get to where you're going with only the clothes on your back, but you should want to be able to walk out and not have to take anything with you. That is the ideal situation for getting out of an abusive household.
It's
That's it.
easier to start over than you think it's gonna be. I think when you're in the middle of it and you're scared and you feel like he really might hurt you, um, the brain plays this trick on you about how hard it's gonna be to start over, and it doesn't necessarily allow you to see that it's not as hard as continuing to be hurt every day. And I've started over, quite a few times in my life. It might be actually my one good trick that I can consistently do. And, the first time, like, it felt like I was jumping into the ocean with no life raft, and then I got my feet underneath me, and before I knew it, I had new friends in a new city and new housing, and I had a whole community of people around me because I threw myself into it. And so what it really takes to start over is just throwing yourself into it, but it's not undoable.
No, it is certainly not something that is incredibly difficult to do. It it's all about taking a look at your situation and taking on one problem at a time. Um, when people get into situations where they feel everything is hopeless, they fall into the sunken cost fallacy. Well, I've been here this long, I might as well put in more work, be it a job or a relationship.
Correct.
It's it's always worth it to leave if you're saying that to yourself. I might as well. I'm, you know, I've already put in this much time. I've already put in this much effort. Why shouldn't I keep going? If you're saying that to yourself, it's time to move on. Um, and again, ideally, if you know you're in an abusive situation and you need to get out and get all of your stuff, don't leave it in your house. Find one of your friends, tell them what's going on, get your important documents out, get important things to take with you, and have a phone ready for you, because the second you leave, you're ditching the phone that's currently under that person's control.
Now, if you have a chance to get out and you can plan ahead and really like have, I don't know, 2 or 3 days, you can move almost everything important in your life besides furniture into suitcases, which is usually what you're allowed to bring on for free on an airplane. I've moved with 2 suitcases. I moved once with one the first time. And then with two, and then if you have somebody that you're with that say a person that has to go out of town a lot, and so you've got a period where they're out of town and you want to move everything across country, the train is a great way to move heavy packages. You can take boxes up to, I want to say, 50 pounds, and they're like $30 each after the first two that are free, and then as much as you can carry on your person on the train. So that's an affordable way to escape too.
Good to know.
Yeah, so Coda actually came to me with only a couple bags, and the two of us lived in the semi for 2 years. All of the rest of her stuff that she could not bring with her on the train, she left in a storage locker in California, which I paid for about 2.5 years. Until she went and got it after her birthday in 2022? Yep, 2022.
This is kind of a neat little plug of a item I recently got, but I recently bought a Rocket Book, which is a reusable notebook. So you can like plan out your days and then take a picture and send them to your online storage and just wipe the pages off and start again. And the benefit of this is that you only really need one notebook. And so it takes up a lot less space as long as you have a cell phone and an internet connection. And I just wanted to plug them as if if you're going to need to get away and you want to take a notebook with you, is a great little nifty way to expand the amount of paper you actually have.
Oh, that actually reminds me. Back on shit hitting the fan. Ham radios. So you can have comms with encryption as civilians, but you're gonna pay out the ass for ham radios that will do encryption that hasn't yet been broken by any military or, any sort of code breaker. Mm-hmm. So the question is, what do you do? Well, you do the same thing we did in Vietnam. You remember what we did in Vietnam?
Nope.
Wind talkers. The Navajo.
Ah, yes.
Now, the Navajo were brought into the war, and they all pretty much did nothing but comms the entire time that they were attached to squads, platoons, fire teams. They were always radio. They were always doing comms. And the thing about it was, not only did they use the native Navajo language, they also layered dialects on top to cause a lot of confusion for anyone that may have tried to crack the code. This is the same thing that we are going to have to learn to do if we're going to keep comms after shit hits the fan.
Right.
We're going to have to layer dialects. We're going to have to learn how to speak different dialects from different areas of the country and layer them on top of each other.
Oh man, I'm really going to excel in this.
Yeah, so am I. You and I have that added benefit of having been all over the country, learned all of the dialects of the places that we've lived.
And I've been obsessed with slang since, like, as soon as I learned that they used to say shit like coolio and daddy-o back in the day, I was like, what the fuck? People talk different. And so that was an obsession of mine growing up.
Yeah, so it's all about, especially if you can't have encryption on comms, definitely learn how to layer dialects. And it's not just words. Dialect is also accent. Because
you're gonna have to learn to do a lot of accents.
Yeah, well, and if you've listened to Stoner Talk in the past, he has a very, very distinct dialect.
Yeah.
The accent in which he speaks is very distinct to his part, not only of the country but of the state.
Mhm.
If you go just a couple hours east of there, they have a completely different dialect, a completely different accent.
In the same state, or you mean, or in a different,
In
like you go to the
in the
next state?
same
Oh,
state
hmm.
of his origin, not where he's currently living, but
Oh,
of his
right,
origin.
right.
Um, you go a couple hours south of where he's from, again, completely different dialect. There are three dialects in the state that I live. And then you go one state north to Minnesota,
Mhm.
there's six different dialects.
Oh, so it's not all that stereotypical Minnesota accent.
No,
There's multiple Minnesota
be,
accents.
because I mean the closer you come to Canada in Minnesota, the more similar to the stereotypical Canadian speech you're going to
Ah,
find, but they're also going to use much different jargon.
hmm.
Same with Wisconsin. The further north you go, the closer they are going to come to sounding to the stereotypical Canadian, but again, much different jargon.
Right.
And these people are only two states away. So you have five or six dialects in Minnesota. You've got three dialects in Iowa. You've got then you move over to Illinois, and in Chicago alone, you have at least 30 dialects
Hmm. Oh,
because you have the Mexican community, you have the Puerto Rican community, you have the Polish community, you have the uh, the black community, you
you
have
have.
the huh
I said you have the Serbian community as well.
you have the Serbian community, you have the Ukrainian community. There are so many people living in Chicago and suburbs of Chicago. We have to call it Chicagoland because Chicago itself is just this little tiny area, and you go outside of it and it's still Chicago, but it's not Chicago proper anymore. By the
Also,
time
Chicago is built on 3 layers of Chicago.
yeah, by the time I get to my morning delivery, which is in Aurora, you're in Chicago. But it's not Chicago, it's Aurora. Chicago has extended out so far. So Des Plaines, that's Chicago, but it's not Chicago. You've got Buffalo. It's Chicago, but it's not Chicago. There are so many suburbs and communities living in all of these areas, either immediately in Chicago proper, immediately surrounding Chicago proper, or in the suburbs surrounding the surrounding areas of Chicago proper. That by the time you get to Chicago proper, you've probably run into about 8 different dialects of just the English language.
Hmm.
The one of the areas that I pick up in Chicago proper, uh, there's a Polish ghetto, there's a Mexican ghetto, there's a Puerto Rican ghetto, and there's a black ghetto, all bordering on each other.
Hmm.
And so there are people there that legitimately speak 5 different languages. Um, one of the women that works in the office, the place that I pick up, she speaks Polish, she speaks Spanish, Portuguese, and English.
Hmm.
And she knows at least 2 different dialects of each language.
Impressive.
So if I was going to take anyone for a fire team, I'm definitely running to Chicago, grabbing her up, and then heading towards the Colorado mountain, like the Rockies.
Hmm. Fair enough.
And I'm not going towards the Rockies because I like it there. I actually find the Rocky Mountains to be very lackluster.
Hmm.
I'm hoping to move out of the area that I live in and go up closer to where when shit goes wrong, I just am not going to be in the middle of it.
You, my dear, want to be in the Smokies.
I don't know about the Smokies because I'm a up north girl. I prefer like there's like some nice woods in Minnesota and Michigan that
Okay.
I wouldn't mind being in.
Okay.
It's
I'd get
also where
that.
I grew up and I would know how to eat like I would be able to recognize at least edible plants out there.
Hmm.
If you want wooded lands up north, I would say go to the Appalachians, northern Appalachians.
Hmm.
Um, Especially around the Pennsylvania or West Virginia area.
I have a list of requirements. So one of them is that the school districts currently be good because my kid is 12 years old. Also, that marijuana already be legal because I have a medical marijuana prescription. I'm just fucking tired of paying the state so that I can go buy weed from overly fancy places. Um, Also, I kind of miss drug dealers. I never thought I'd say that.
Hun, we're talking about shit hitting the fan. There is no government. There
You
there
know
are
what?
no
No, no,
there
no,
are no
because
schools.
I was talking about like in real life, like right now, what I was planning on, not necessarily if shit hits the fan
Oh,
like
okay.
today. I just mean like my long term plans are I'm looking at property up in like Minnesota or Michigan, but then also the added benefit is that I would like to be in an area of land that perhaps had a good enough vegetable garden and whatever that if it was all crazy outside of my house, I just kind of just had to stay home, you know?
Listen, when it comes down to it, if shit hits the fan, everything's going to be legal everywhere. And in such a case, I'm taking all of you with me. We're starting our own colony, and I will teach you how to do hydroponics
Hmm.
There we go. And that's
and
totally acceptable.
aeroponics.
What I'm working with right now in the real world is just my dad and I are arguing because he wants to stay here in Florida in the area we're in. You have to work to attend the good school and like I don't want to get a job around here. There's no jobs that pay over like $15 an hour max, but usually they start at like 10 and I make quite a considerable amount more than that.
So
And so
Stoner,
like we're just having this argument that you like for some reason he wants to stick around here and I want her to go to a good high school and like eh. I'm not going to work here 20 hours a week so that she can attend what, in my estimate, is a subpar high school anyway.
So Stoner just asked if he can be a shooter of my shit hit the fan team. And of course you can. Everyone in my server gets to come live in my community.
Very nice.
I will build it from the ground up. I will teach everyone everything that they need to know in order to get everything successful. Obviously, people are going to catch on to certain things faster than other people. If Liz, if you have that love for gardening, I will teach you aeroponics and hydroponics.
Oh no, I'm really more of an animal person.
Okay.
We are going to have animals, right? Because I
Of
can,
course.
muck stalls with the best of them.
Of course we'll have animals. Someone is going to have to learn hydroponics and aeroponics.
Sure, someone's going to have to, but I'm
Oh,
naturally great with animals and they all love to listen to me and they don't bite me, so I'm probably should go with the
oh,
animals.
I know what hydroponics is, but what is aeroponics?
Aeroponics is similar to hydroponics, but hydroponics, you're quite literally keeping the roots of the plant laid in water.
Yeah.
Aeroponics, instead of having trays with roots in the water, you actually have towers where water will trickle down through the entire day and it will just get recycled so that you're not using more water than you need to. And all of the plants that are involved in the tower can get all of the nutrients that they need. And they're not going to be they're not going to have any sort of chance of drowning in the water.
Hmm.
That reminds me, I recently was gifted a little hydroponic pot and so I was already actually getting into hydroponic gardening and I was giving you shit.
Of course, everyone gives me shit. It's fine.
Sorry. No, I had this tremendously horrible interview like 6 months ago, and I got rather mad at them at the end because it was volunteering for a cause that I was like pretty on board with, and I was willing to act or not volunteering. It was managing the volunteers for it, and I was willing to volunteer for them if I didn't get the job, except for they didn't tell me for like 2 weeks, and they Dear John me and then they also like in the Dear John, it described a different level than I had been putting in for the effort that I'd been putting in for the organization. I was like, well, fuck you guys. I'm not going to help at all. Right. Anyway, this is my apology present.
What was the cause?
The cause. Oh, I do not want to actually amplify them right now, but I'll
Oh,
talk to you about it afterwards.
fair enough.
Yeah, like
Always
no,
fe-
because I can't just talk shit about them and then be like, and then let me tell you about this thing that like I did kind of like what they have going on. I don't know how I feel about like their management or um because I don't want the election season to go by and not do anything because I've got strong opinions and I know that we probably all disagree on those, but I have strong opinions about like abortion in particular. And so for me, that's like my priority issue. And I understand if it's not everybody's priority issue, but like I live in a Republican state and I have a 12-year-old daughter who is just going through puberty. And these are issues that are the most important thing to me right now. And so I kind of do want to get out and knock on doors and be like, hey, these are the things that are like going on in our country right now. And I was looking for somebody to volunteer with, and I had been thinking I was going to make this group my home for the election, and I decided not to because of the letter I got.
it's completely understandable. Um, Also, always feel free to just put shit in the chat if you want to talk about something, but not air it.
All right.
And I think I've made it extremely clear, as long as someone is open to talking civilly, that they are always welcome in my server.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel unwelcome. I just wasn't going to plug what I actually plan to be spending my time on because it's a partisan cause, and I'm not giving that airtime.
Understood. No, when it comes down to it, we all have extremely different points of view. I mean, me and Dale have talked about abortion before.
Indeed.
We generally do not agree on the outcome. But we can still agree to disagree,
Mm-hmm.
which is exactly what the server is supposed to be for.
Correct.
Back to shit hitting the fan, and we still have about 30 minutes before we start the music to get the fuck out of here. We got quite a bit of news coming out last week. First we had the Trump verdict. And there have been several cases that have been decided not at a Supreme Court level yet, but several cases that lend towards Bruin. For example, I believe either this past weekend or even today, Massachusetts had their conceal carry laws absolutely knocked down by a district court judge.
Very good.
And there was this huge freak out about the Trump verdict, and how he has raised like 20 million.
Actually, it's now 200 million.
Holy shit. Okay.
Yes. So one single person pledged $100 million, and the other 100 million was from smaller dollar donations. But yeah,
Here's
in like 48 hours, it was up to $200 million.
here's where I'm sitting with all of this.
Mm-hmm.
I would generally agree the guy is a piece of shit. I accept the fact that he cheated on his wife and fucked a porn star.
Mm-hmm.
I generally agree with the fact that he bribed a porn star to remain silent. But, and here's where I'm coming from, none of that fucking matters. Because at the end of the day, you're giving him publicity. If you stop talking about him, if you ignore him, and you are influential enough in your circle, other people are going to ignore him and not care. He will not raise money that way. He will not become powerful that way. And at the end of the day, if everyone fucking ignores him, he's just going to go back to being the same piece of shit businessman he was before he ever became president. And it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the U.S. government is still going to give him and all of his friends that he was friends with before all of this shit started the same fucking tax breaks they always have.
Mhm.
I'm pretty pro
Politicians,
people being held accountable for committing crimes. I just want to say that I have been to jail and to court because I broke the law, and I don't really find what happened to him unfair at all. In fact, the person in front of me, when I was going to court, I don't know if you know, when you're not rich and you get arraigned, they just like wham bam over and over again. And so you show up and like anyway, I spent a weekend in jail, and then I went in front of the judge who was looking at. I should start from the beginning. No, I shouldn't. Anyway, the person in front of me called the judge a cunt, and I spent a week in jail. So I feel like Trump got treated more fairly than I don't know most people do.
I don't know. I mean,
in
the verdict is absolutely getting reversed on appeal because a there was a shit ton of both prosecutorial misconduct and bad rulings from the judge. So, like,
Hey, you know what? And if it happens, it happens. Either way,
yeah,
it's the judicial system, and like sometimes you fuck around and you end up stuck in it, and like
which
that's what people have to deal with. And I guess if we come out the other side of this and people are like, "Hey, we're kind of dicks to people in the criminal justice system," that wouldn't be so bad.
well, and that's kind of the point that I was trying to make on Twitter a couple days ago. It it doesn't really matter if he did do it, if he is guilty or not guilty, because at the end of the day, it shows just how corrupt the justice system has become, especially in New York. I mean, we've got people that are wholly exercising and standing on their rights. There's Long Island Audits, a YouTuber out of Long Island, New York, who has repeatedly, in New York City alone, been arrested for video recording in in New York City public lobbies of police precincts. He's been arrested for video recording in public areas in the public lobby of New York City police precincts. He's been arrested for outing what's his name? He is the police commissioner for Nassau County, New York. I can't remember his name,
Wait,
but
hold on.
his
So this guy just goes and he sits in like the lobby of the precinct and like records them and shares it.
well, he doesn't go and sit in the lobby. He gets arrested the second he walks into the lobby. He gets confronted by officers that don't want him there. But here's the thing about New York. In New York City, they have explicit laws saying that you cannot arrest a person for video recording in a public area, especially in government public areas.
Yeah, but the police don't follow the law.
Yeah, which is why they tried charging him with trespassing. And the judge in those cases, after, several motions from his defense counsel, finally, said, "Hey, you guys can't do this." But the judges have said it before, and the police departments continue to do it. And the Nassau County case, I remember the police commissioner's name, Patrick Psycho Ryder. His nickname that he got while he was a police officer in New York City is Psycho. He waves that proudly. He has gotten caught up in a civil asset forfeiture scam in Nassau County with a major corruption scandal. The person who appointed him to be the police commissioner is serving time in jail in New York, I believe, for racketeering.
Very suspicious.
And Patrick Psycho Ryder has been endorsed by Trump. This man is a very, very corrupt individual. And so I see corruption on both sides in New York. When Long Island Audits was arrested for video recording the front of the police commissioner's house, for recording in public areas of government buildings in Nassau County, he has now taken to the streets, and he has a billboard truck, an electronic billboard truck with LED video screens showing the people of Nassau County the shit that the police commissioner has done. They've already tried to indict via a grand jury because of that. Not Patrick Psycho Ryder. They haven't tried indicting him. They've tried indicting Long Island Audit for actually protesting in public, in a public forum.
What were they trying to indict him with?
I don't know. I don't know what they took up in front of the grand jury. It's just New York is a haven for blue and red corruption. I mean, if you moved Trump's trial from whatever venue it was at to the court in Nassau County, completely different verdict. I guarantee it.
Mm-hmm.
And it would still go up on appeal.
Yep.
I didn't really follow it. I'm tired of hearing about Trump.
Yeah, I didn't bring up Trump because of Trump. I brought it up because of shit hitting the fan.
No. I wasn't trying to say you are. I just
Yeah,
normally I'm
no.
a news junkie, and I haven't really been following this because I am just I'm tapped out, man. I listen to his speeches, and I don't know, it's been since
That's
2016. I was moderating Reddit at the time. I've heard more about this dude than I have ever had to hear about another human being.
well, and that's just my thing. I said I didn't bring up Trump because of, but I wanted to make it clear. I do not bring up these things because of these things. I bring it up because of peripheral things that we are specifically talking about. And I'm right on board with you. I am so fucking sick of the news. That's why I stopped watching Tim Pool. That's why I got sick of Philip DeFranco years ago.
I just I have to know what's going on still though, because you can't take your eyes off these fuckers.
No, I haven't taken my eyes off of people. I've just stopped paying attention to all of the pundits.
Oh yeah, I cut out the pundits a while back. It started with, I was growing up, so I grew up in a Republican household, and so I swung very far left when I first got out, and I used to watch The Daily Show, Stephen Colbert, and Bill Maher every week, and Bill Maher was the first thing to go. There was just one day that I was like, this dude is a fucking jackass, and it was news people too, but it was with the comedians that it started, right? Because it starts with the clown whose mask slips, and then you look over and you're like, do I really like this Rachel Maddow bitch, or do I think I do? And before I knew it, I was just reading the newspapers, and I hate listening to pastors tell me what the Bible says. I hate listening to news people tell me what the news actually is. Like, I want to read the facts, and I don't want to hear anybody's fucking opinion about it, especially all of the pundits. Every time I walk by my mom watching Fox News, there's like the same people that were wrong about the war in Iraq still talking. Um, and then the next version of them, and, like, the same girl that looks like all the other girls, and I don't know, the whole world is just crazy.
Well, and here's the funny thing about all of this. If you get out of the news completely and get onto ham radio, like you actually get a license and set up on 10 or 20 meter bandwidths and just listen to the old guys talk. These people don't pay attention to the news. There's a huge network out there of just information being passed around without any sort of spin on it.
Hmm. What sort of stuff do they talk about?
They'll talk about everything from tech to what's going on in a political party to what's going on with a political candidate, and half of these guys have no political affiliation to begin with. They are so fed up with the state of politics that they're just keeping to themselves. They'll watch shit going on around them. They'll report it to everyone on their nets. So, I knew about the riots down in Ferguson back in 2014.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was
Almost
2014.
almost immediately before any news was ever broadcast about it. Because that was right around the time that I got my ham license. So I was sitting on 10 meter and 2 meter nets just listening to radio operators passing information back and forth across the country.
I used to, when I was modding Reddit, one of the side benefits that you wouldn't think about was we were all together in IRC rooms. So when something would happen in your city, like, for example, when I lived in Portland, we would just walk downtown with Snapchat and send each other videos of what was actually happening because we had this huge network, kind of like your ham radio thing. So
Mm-hmm.
when a lot of things have happened, I have been live streaming them on YouTube, because we figure out where people are posting it, and then we share these links amongst each other, kind of like the internet version of that.
What subreddit were you moderating?
My biggest one was personal finance.
Oh. So you were moderating more than one. It wasn't just one subreddit.
So hold on 1 second and let me shut my door because the dog's going crazy, and I will tell you really quickly.
All right, fair enough.
The puppy loves me. So I started out with a smaller subreddit, the parenting subreddit, and there was like a lot of issues with infighting and stuff. And so I came up with like a plan to get the community on board with being better behaved, basically. And part of it was like the first thing I did was I reached out and I was like, hey, do you guys think that this is a problem? And they were like, yeah, we think it's a problem. And then I was like, well, I think we should do something to fix it. And they were like, yeah, we should do something to fix it. And so through a back and forth conversation with the community, we redid the rules, and we came up with ways for them to communicate with us better. We got more mods on it. We recruited from people who were like saying things like, hey, we don't really want to be mean to kids, for example, who are on our subreddit. We're all parents here. That's not cool. And I was really successful at that for a time. So the people from personal finance were about to turn into a default sub, and the head mod at the time reached out and was like, hey, do you want to give a try at this? It's going to shoot you into a different level of modding, but I think you'd be good at it. And so when it started scaling up majorly, that's when they brought me on, and I helped with the community work and that kind of stuff. And so that gave me access to the back rooms with the admins of Reddit and all of the other moderators that were subreddits of the big subreddits. But also, in addition to having big subreddits, almost all of us had interests, so like I also had a subreddit about libraries and another one about graphic novels, for example. And then a lot of people had like their city subreddit. So if something would go down in the city, somebody would post in the subreddit and they'd be like, hey, dudes, look at this video from downtown. And then the local moderator would post into the Reddit moderator group, hey, this is going down in my city. And all of a sudden, all of us knew because we had that network.
Hmm.
So back on track, just one last point that I want to make. If you are going to take weapons for you in a shit hit the fan situation,
Mm-hmm.
you should at least have one red dot sight for one of your firearms. You should have trained with the red dot and learned how to sight with both eyes open. And the reason why you do this is because you want to be able to get accurate, quick target acquisition and still be able to put shots on target. When you are shooting with only one eye, it is very difficult to place well-aimed shots in just a moment's notice. So what you learn when you have a red dot sight is you learn how to superimpose your sight on top of your target. It actually comes very naturally after a few visits to the range. It is not something that comes naturally when you're shooting with irons. You have to train yourself over and over and over again if that's all you've learned on. You almost have this instinctive need to close one eye and line up your sights with one eye. Whereas with a red dot sight, you can immediately just keep both eyes open, bring your sight up to your dominant eye, and superimpose your red dot on top of your target. Doing that is going to give you incredibly accurate shots very fast.
Very good to know. And actually, while we're on the topic of sights, real quick, I have a couple of questions.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is a reflex sight?
I honestly cannot answer that. Let me go ahead and look that up.
All right. And in the same vein, do you know what a holographic sight is? Because those are a couple of types of sights I've heard of and I've seen in games, but I'm not exactly sure what they are.
So a reflex sight, also known as a reflector sight, is an optical sight that allows the user to see an illuminated image or aiming point on top of their field of view through a partially reflecting glass element. Reflex sights are ideal for quick sighting over short and medium distances because both eyes can be open while using them. They can also be a cheaper alternative to rifle scopes depending on the distance. So a red dot sight is generally going to be a reflex sight.
I see. So it's... How about holographic sights?
But before I move on to holographic sights, reflex sights, something like Hollow Sun, I just generally call them red dots because it projects a light onto a piece of glass that gets reflected.
Right.
Versus holographic sights. Unlike reflex sights, which become less useful at longer ranges, holographic sights can be used at almost any distance, as long as you can see the target without magnification. Their reticles are usually clearer, brighter, and easier to see. Models with adjustable brightness are night vision compatible. Okay, so a holographic sight has a clearer reticle. And then you move on to something like the Trigicon RCO, or the ACOG as they're often called.
Mm-hmm.
They are scopes that use a tritium element, so there is no battery. As long as there has been some sort of sunlight at some point, you have a high chance of having a reticle in your sight. They also now come with a reflex sight on top of the ACOG, so that you can shoot both close distance and long distance. I generally do not like Trigicon. Our rifles in the Marine Corps did use the RCO, and they are nice, but on an extremely bright day, the tritium element that's used to create illumination for the reticle can get so bright that it floods out your target. You would actually, in Afghanistan, you would actually see guys with the RCO on their rifle, and they would have the tritium element covered, like every bit except for like the very tip of it would be covered with duct tape. Oh, let's see here. Trigicon.
I know it's a little early, but I think I should say goodbye because both the puppy and the child have decided that they're done being patient about the podcast.
Yeah, no,
Fair enough.
actually, I was thinking we were going to go ahead and shut things out. So let's go ahead and do our goodbyes. Let's go ahead and start with our one friend from the South, Liz. Please say goodnight, Liz.
Good night. And also in your go bag, make sure that you have a battery for your phone and a USB cable that fits into your phone so that you don't run out of power when you need to call for help. That's my last piece of advice.
Okay, and then we will go ahead and finish off with our friend from the Soviet North, our Soviet Kanakistanian, our dirty Frenchy Frenchman, Dale. Please say goodnight, Dale.
Good night, everyone. Hope to see you next time.
And I am going to go ahead and throw in any piece of advice. Just remember, when you are looking to assemble a go bag, you can assemble it for any specific situation, or you can assemble it for a shit hit the fan, cover everything scenario. But no matter what, gear it towards generalities that you may encounter when you have to use it. With that, I'm going to go ahead and play the intro/outro music, and we will see you all this coming Saturday night for our regularly scheduled TATM podcast. I will see you all then. Have a good night. Bye.